Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant weigh in today. And I'm excited for this fight. This will make it complete for Canelo for me, how great of a fighter he is. With this style, he hasn't seen this style in a long time. I want to see how he adapts to it, a slick boxer like Caleb Plant. So in my older videos, I gave a couple scenarios. I came out and said what Caleb Plant has to watch out for with Canelo and how he gets a 12-round split decision. And then about 3 days later, I made one, here's how Canelo gets his knockout with Caleb Plant in the 10th or 11th round. So, this is a hard prediction for me. I know it's not for everybody else, and I respect it. There's been a lot of trainers, top trainers, that said Caleb's just going to get slaughtered. And I respect those guys. But I'm going to have to see it to believe it. And of course, I can't go against Canelo. I mean, in his last fight, he just had the highest attendance of an indoor record in America. So yeah, for Caleb Plant to get a decision against Canelo at this point, it's hard to bet for Caleb Plant in this fight. So I'm going to go with Canelo. Now, if I were training Caleb Plant, I would try to stop Canelo with a liver shot. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons. I kind of went through fronted up fighters and their liver and liver shots and stuff in my other videos. But anyway, I would have to, you're not going to stop Canelo hitting him in the head. The guy's got an iron chin. You saw Triple G. And even Daniel Jacobs hit him pretty good. So anyway, that's how I would go about this fight. I wouldn't just try to win a decision with the judges when a guy has just sold the highest attendance records in Billy Joe Saunders. All right, if Caleb Plant does pull this off with a decision, and I'm hoping if it is a decision, the judges get it right. In the past few months, there's been bad decisions and judges are getting hammered. So hopefully they see that and they can judge the fight right, which if it's crooked, it's going to be crooked for somebody. There's none of that. But anyway, now, if Caleb Plant happens to win this fight, here's some things I haven't overlooked, but maybe you guys have overlooked. Okay, Billy Joe Saunders. This is my opinion, nobody else's. I don't think his heart's been in boxing for a couple of years. I think the last real Billy Joe we saw was with Lemieux. And I remember he had, it was 12 weeks training camp coming up for Canelo, which should be long enough. That's a pretty good training camp if you're in shape again. So I remember Billy Joe, I have a bad case of the flu. I'm going to miss a week or two of training. So everything looked bad for me with Billy Joe Saunders in this fight. And I had Canelo beating him pretty easily, actually, which a couple of years ago I wouldn't have said that with Billy Joe Saunders. And it's funny, after that bad performance a couple of years ago Billy Joe had, I was telling my buddy who we talk boxing all the time, I go, you watch, Canelo will mention something that he will fight Billy Joe. And sure enough, he did. What was Billy Joe? I think he was losing on one card when he knocked that guy out in the 11th round and finally turned it around for him. So anyway, we're taking a lot of creed from Canelo breaking the orbital bone of Billy Joe Saunders. So when you have a bad habit of Billy Joe Saunders going like this, and he does have a bad habit, and you have a good habit of a Canelo Alvarez doing this forever, even against Cotto's brother. way back in the day. So Canelo's been doing these, getting way under. They knew this before the Billy Joe fight, and it worked out for him.
Coming in, land the right hand, a little too far out.
So in other words, I'm not completely impressed by a guy doing something like that when a guy is good at that and breaks the orbital bone. My first pro fighter, Nate, broke the guy's orbital bone in the second round. I didn't know what was happening. The guy came over. He was in my corner during the fight and just stops. And he says, "I can't see." He was telling that to the referee. I had no clue what was wrong until about 3 months later. The matchmaker, I go, "Where is this guy? How come we don't see him anymore? He was a tough dude." And he goes, "Nate broke his orbital bone and he's not allowed to fight anymore." So there you go. It's kind of funny when you're worth putting asses in the seat and get an orbital bone, they let you keep fighting. But when you don't, they don't let you fight. So anyway, and I can go back to, who was the 6'3" European guy with the long reach? And he's fighting like this, Smith. I mean, instead of like Caleb Plant, this is how I teach my guys. Other gyms used to come spar with my guys. They would all be fronted up and we'd have a field day on them. It was hilarious, actually. But Canelo's got the good movement, where these fronted up guys just stand like this. They're not like Tyson. They're not like Canelo. So anyway, I don't put these fighters Canelo's been destroying when they're fighting like a 6'3" guy with long reach going like this. His jab hand no further out than his right hand, basically. So anyway, enjoy this fight. I think I haven't overlooked these points, and that's why I gave Caleb Plant a chance. But you're saying it's all going to end in a knockout, which actually would be good, because wouldn't it be awful if it went 12 rounds and Caleb really did win the fight and the judges give it to Canelo? So we don't need that anymore. So that's my take on it. But if Caleb Plant does win, I'll have a whole scenario what people overlook. This is just the beginning of mine. Just a few points I put out. So, yeah, can't wait for this Saturday night. It's going to be a good one. And if Canelo does his thing, he is, in my book, I already have Canelo beaten Beterbiev before the Caleb Plant. I have Caleb Plant a harder contest than Beterbiev. So, yeah. The old man's nuts, isn't he? All right, you guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy the fight.